Who are you?
Major Douglas Kelley. He is the Army psychiatrist tasked with discovering whether these men are fit for trial.
Here, all in one place, were some of the arch villains of world history. It was a concentrated dose of what many people believed was evil in one spot.
And I don't think he knows what he's up against.
The entire world is watching.
I learned in 2023 that my book, The Nazi and the Psychiatrist, was going to become a movie called Nuremberg.
My first reaction was, wow, it's another thing about my father. How are they going to present him?
I spent a week in Budapest, and during that time, they were shooting a lot of the Göring prison cell scenes, which were just scenes between Russell Crowe and Rami Malek in a very confined space. He was interested in talking with me about his interpretation of the character.
I wanted him to be charming. I wanted him to be disarming, which is a very useful tool when your entire roster of clients is 22 Nazis locked up in cells in Nuremberg. So he needed to be someone who you would want to spend time in a room with, that someone you would want to divulge information to.
From an early age, young Douglas grew up in an atmosphere in which his family members pushed him to achieve. He was a very able, bright child.
June was something else. She was very intelligent. The second woman lawyer to actually practice before the state Supreme Court in California. She did what she did for function because her husband, Doc, was very affable, laid-back, kind of rakish guy that hung out and was friends with everybody in town and hung out, and everybody knew old Doug Kelley.
And my father was content to ply his trade and display a cheerful disposition. He was a man of no accomplishment.
But you believe you are destined for more.
She communicated to him this feeling that the world is not a totally safe place, people are not completely trustworthy, and that he should be on guard and watching out for bad things to happen. And this is what contributed to him deciding to become a psychiatrist.
So can you tell me what I'm supposed to be doing here?
I believe Dr. Kelley did not know a lot about what was going to be expected of him as a military psychiatrist. Being a military psychiatrist was a new thing, and the Second World War was the first conflict in which psychiatrists began to play a part. It was first noticed, I think, during World War I, that soldiers often came out of fighting with disabling psychological problems. And for a long time, they were thought to be permanently disabling or disabling for a long time. And it wasn't until World War II that some medical techniques were developed, Dr. Kelley foremost among them, to shorten the length and to remove it. So there were patients who came to him who were afraid to return to the battlefield. There were some who may not have been afraid, but couldn't function. It was trauma. He was treating trauma of various kinds that soldiers acquired in battle.
He accomplished. He was able to create scenarios that got results that the military wanted, that had not been achievable by others people's efforts and actions.
So in practice, what Kelley does is he uses magic as a kind of occupational therapy. So what he's trying to get is something that patients can do, they can occupy themselves with, something that might benefit their physical, or in this case, their mental health.
It's the simplest trick in the world. It works because people want to believe.
For example, when you practice magic, this requires concentration. It also requires coordination between hand and eye and mind. So this is something which can get patients away from their internal thoughts and thinking about something else. Also, when you perform magic, that requires social skills. And when you succeed in a magic trick, which is almost impossible not to. This can raise self-esteem. So in various ways, he thought magic could be used to help the mental health of the patient.
So he was able to train a lot of people to be able to reconstitute people's psyches and mind and stamina.
And that's what brought him to the attention of his higher-ups in the army and also the military tribunal.
So they're looking at a guy that's facile at his job, great at accomplishment, has a variety of techniques that he's already trained and written in and proven that he can do. So suddenly he has all of the assets that they need wrapped up in one bundle, a power unit that's willing to come in there and match a Nazi warlord face to face, word to word, step to step, and isn't going to be intimidated.
What the Army originally proposed for the psychiatrist was something that almost any psychiatrist could handle, which was simply to assess these men to determine they were mentally fit to stand trial. That means that they were healthy in a basic sense, but in a legal sense, fit the criteria of knowing right from wrong and being able to control their actions enough to be held responsible for their actions. Kelley stepped into that role and made it much bigger and much more dynamic. Instead of someone who came in and tested them and rendered a professional judgment, he became a key figure in the life at the Nuremberg jail. It's because of him that we now know so much about those men. That's one of the great things of value that came out of Kelley's time at Nuremberg.
If we could psychologically define evil, we can make sure something like this never happens again.
Kelley had some important early influences. One was his grandfather, Charles McGlashan.
McGlashan, the same thing as my father. He's a big dude. He gets into everything. He was a reporter. He was an editor. He also discovered where the Donner Party was.
So the Donner Party were these overland migrants around the time of the California gold rush. And they got caught during a blizzard and were stranded in the mountains all winter and had to resort to cannibalism. And so McGlashan wrote the first book about the Donner Party, and he also built a private museum. It was possible at that time to still visit those sites and find remnants of the party, bones, utensils, tools. They used grisly items of different kinds. So when Dr. Kelley was growing up, he spent a lot of time with his grandparents, including McGlashan, and was immersed in this dark, grotesque history. I think that influenced him Dr. Kelley had a lot of darkness within him, and I think this was the start of it.
Are we friends, Doctor?
I think that word is a little too simple for what we are.
Dr. Kelley is in some ways similar to Hermann Göring. Big ego, smart, believing his absolute rightness. And when I have talked with Dr. Kelley's son, Doug, about this matchup of characters, we've often together referred to it as King Kong versus Godzilla, because they were master manipulators, both of them, trying to outwit the other.
There was actually a sense of power-to-power recognition, respect, that either one of them could have switched roles and been accomplished in the job that they had. And so between the two of them, I think it's a nature that they felt. And as that, they became, and a lot of people misunderstand this, they became friends in that genre, but not friends as friends.
I've been seeing him a lot without me. What you doing, Doc?
Trying to learn something?
You sure that's what this is still about?
It was a perception by others that was actually a result of a job well done.
Good night, Howie.
Kelley's role in the International Military Tribunal, that first Nuremberg trial, I think has faded because, first of all, he was a background player. He was not sitting in the dock with the prisoners. He was not sitting among the judges or with the prosecutors. He was off to the side, and all of what he did was accomplished in the prison away from the view of others. But another is that the conclusions he drew from his time in Nuremberg were not popular.
He's surprised by what he discovers in all of these men, that they're human. He likened them to everyone else in the world, just put under a certain circumstance in a certain period of time. He tried to dissect whether they were evil or not and discovered that evil exists at any point in any circumstance when the time and environment and climate allow it.
The only time he ever talked about Nuremberg with me was for me to read the last chapter of his book and have a cognition warning that this can happen anywhere.
At work, in our country's politics, in other ways. And that was not a message that people wanted to hear after the war, that the war itself would not end the fascism and this kind of behavior, that the trial would not end that kind of behavior and those kinds of crimes. It would always be with us, and that we have to be vigilant.
Which was something he toiled and struggled with for the rest of his life and tried to disseminate upon the public, but no one would listen. So he's a very conflicted and complex character.